my precious little dragons, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today I just wanted to kind of go over how I've organized my TBR. I don't think this will be too long of a video, but I just kind of wanted to show you how I organized it because recently, up until like the last couple days, because this has been kind of something I thought about doing for a while, but I just hadn't had the time to really dedicate to doing it. But it's winter break, so I spent like basically 2 days putting together my brand new organized TBR. Up until this point, I had used a notes app, the notes app on my phone, but my TBR got so long, it got to the point where I legitimately could not, it was a little overwhelming because you just had to like scroll through. There's no way to really search for anything. You just have to scroll until you find what you're looking for. And that's not really helpful when you want to know what you want to read. You know, it's not helpful. And all I had was like the title and the author's name. And so that also doesn't really tell me much information. So if I don't know the premise of the book really well, it doesn't tell me a lot. So if I'm in like the mood for a fantasy, I'm like, well, I can probably guess, especially if I know the premise, but what? Welcome to Aria. Sorry, she got woken up by my sister, so now she's like, what's happening? It just got a little overwhelming. So I sat down, I spent a couple days putting everything together. I thought about recording the process of putting it together, but I figured that would just be a little bit too repetitive, mundane. It would be boring. It would be taxing because I know it was taxing for me. Like, even though I'm like very satisfied with it now. Yeah. I'm just gonna really quick take you through how it looks like. All right, so here is my TBR. So as you can see, I have it set up in 2 tabs for right now. It may grow. We'll see. It just kind of depends on how useful this becomes as I continue on. But I have your standard Excel spreadsheet. So the one downside is that, of course, I can't really look at this on my phone. I have to have my laptop, but if I'm going to be checking my TBR, I'm probably going to be at home, in which case I have access to my laptop, and I'm at my laptop most of the time anyway. So it's not really that big of a hassle. Like, the only time I can see it coming up is if I'm like if I'm like at the library and I'm like, I need to check my TBR, but I do also still have the notes on my phone. So I can go through it if I want to, or I can just be prepared and make a list. I mean, like, I want to get the specific book. Not that anyone's going to the library right now in person to just browse the bookshelves, but you know, at some point in the distant, maybe not so distant future, when we are again allowed to roam the library free. That could theoretically be the only issue with having my main TBR on my laptop instead of on my phone. I have my main TBR section organized. So I have my TBR organized primarily by genre first. And so it goes, you know, A to Z. And then by author, which is also A to Z. So within the genre, it's organized alphabetically. So I'm going to show you kind of how it's set up. So if you want to do this for your TBR, you can. Obviously, whatever works best for you, but this is just what works best for me. It helps me keep things organized, and then I can always search things if I want to. As you can see here, like, I have biography. So I have 2 biographies in my TBR, not a lot. And then I have Christian fiction, classic, and I kind of have classics split up into a couple different sections, and I wanted to organize that. So I wrote classics, or classic instead of classics. So that actually gives me the opportunity to do what I wanted to do before, and so I can show you how it is. So you go to editing and you click sort and filter. And I do custom sort because you sort by, and then I chose the column. So I wanted to sort by genre first, sort on value, and A to Z. And then by, so you would press add here. So add level, so it'll go sort by this first, and then by author, values, A to Z. And then you want to make sure if you have headers that you click that your list has headers. And then you click OK. And everything is sorted, and you can see this is reorganized. So my pure classics are here, and then my classics horror, classics literary fiction, classics mystery, those are all there as well. So I have quite a lot on my TBR. I have currently, and this is not everything, I still have to add to it, I have currently 307 on my TBR. There is more because I have more on my Goodreads, and I'm trying to work on getting everything over from my Goodreads into my TBR. But I just wanted to kind of show you generally what it is, because this is obviously going to change as I read things, as I add things. Might as well do it now while everything is pretty much organized. So The main things that I have are, of course, I have the title, I have the author, I have the genre, whether it's in a series. If it is, I put what the series is and what number it is, the release year, whether I own it or not, the age, so the age range, so this would be like generally middle grade, YA, and adult. There's a couple where I said NA because it was like a biography or memoir or something. I'm like, I didn't really feel like placing it anywhere because I'm like, well, maybe technically it's aimed at adults, but then also like those are the kind of things they make you like read in high school for book reports, so I'm like, it could be, I don't know, it could be anything. So I just put NA because I wasn't sure what to do with it. And then any notes I have. So generally speaking, I'm using this for keywords. So I might write teens, dystopia, bomb, blog, short period, women's rights, immigration, Christianity, politics, religion. That's for this little light. Stuff like that. Some I didn't put anything for because I just didn't feel like it, or I was in a rush, or I just like, that happened more with stuff I was really familiar with. Like I knew it, I know it's in there, knew what I was looking for, you know, stuff like that. Ones that were less familiar to me, or especially if I'm in the mood for something specific, like I am in the mood for a superhero story, or I am in the mood for something with mental health representation, stuff like that. That's where, you know, I could go to Command F and I can search for mental health, and it'll show me all of my different places where that is listed. So I have The Surprising Power of a Good Dumpling by Y Chim has mental health as one of the keywords. Little One Lion has mental health as one of the keywords. You know, there's lots of places where it's one of the keywords. Just Give Me a Soft Place to Land, Freshwater, The Forgotten Letters of Esther Durant, This Close to Okay, Marbles, Heartberries, The Haunted Self, Shine, The Extraordinaries, and Before She Knew Him. So all of these have mental health, which Before She Knew Him, that one specifically, maybe I need to be better at that. I mean, I would be reading this and trying to determine what I thought was the best one. That one, I found it in a recommendation video because someone was like, it has very bad mental health rep, specifically because it's in a thriller, which is known for having bad mental health rep. So that one's not quite, that one doesn't quite fit, but you get the general idea that I can type in a keyword and I have those in my notes, and so I can find a book that fits the mood I'm in to read. So that for me is really helpful. So a lot of times, like I would put in like things like, well, does it represent like the specific group? So if it's like based on the specific type of mythology, like Chinese mythology or Greek, or it's got magic at a center, or it's got witches or LGBT or like school, or, you know, things like that. Like that'll just really help me hone in on the primary things the book focuses on. That way I can kind of better tailor what I want to read. I mean, I can kind of take you through this a little bit. I don't want to take too long with it because obviously that would take forever, but I have lots of little nonfictions. I have lots of mysteries. Like fantasy is by far my biggest section. Historical fiction is also a fairly big section. This took me a while to do, but I think it was worth it. Oh, I did want to point out, so if you are wanting to create this, wanted to be able to see my header at all times. So I Googled how to do this because it is not something that I just knew how to do. Magic of Google. But basically you're going to go to View and you're going to go to Freeze Top Row. So that, generally speaking, your top row is your header row. So if you press Freeze Top Row, it will basically freeze this, so it will always be visible even if you scroll past where you would normally be able to see it. So that for me is very helpful because then I can still know what column I'm in. I mean, technically speaking, I can look at this and know what column I'm in, but it's nice just to have the header always present. All right, so I wanted to kind of look at my breakdown a little bit.
8 hours later.
Okay, so that didn't work. Apparently I've forgotten how to do charts in Excel. So if I remember, or if I can figure it out, I will insert stuff here about the breakdown. All right, so it took me a while, but I finally reminded myself how to make the stupid pie charts out of data in one column. And it's not as simple as one would think, but whatever. Anyway, so I'm just going to do a really quick breakdown. Obviously, fantasy comprises the largest amount of my genres in the TBR. So I have 101 titles, which comprises 33%. The next largest is historical fiction. There are 37 titles. It makes up 12%. Then nonfiction has 9%. Then there is romance at 8%, contemporary fiction at 7%, mystery at 6%, memoir at 5%, sci-fi at 4%. And then we get down into the really little stuff, so it gets a little hard to read here, so my apologies. We have thriller with 8 titles and 3%. And then we have literary fiction at 2%, speculative fiction, classics, and horror are all tied with 6 titles at 2%. We have Christian fiction and graphic novels, both with 4 titles tied at 1%. Then we have sci-fantasy, 3 titles, 1%. Biography, 2 titles, 1%. Alright, this next chart is a lot simpler. Adult has 180 titles at 59%, YA has 84 titles at 27%, middle grade has 24 titles at 8%, and NA is 19 titles at 6%. Alright, so here is my second tab. So this is 2021 releases. So what I've done here is I have the title, the author, the genre, the series, its release date, the age range, and notes. I tried to be a little bit more specific with this one. Obviously it's not nearly as long as my full TBR. And I also set up, which it hasn't done anything yet because we haven't reached the date, but I have set up a conditional formatting that will let me know when the date is passed, because then I can move it from my 2021 releases into my full TBR. So once the release date has passed, it'll show up in bright red, and then I can move it over. So the way that I learned how to do this, so you would have the release date selected, you go to conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, less than, then you go to, I mean it's already selected out of all of these stuff. I keep the light red fill with dark red text, and you press equal to today. So it'll be like, if it is past today's date, then it will be filled with this. It doesn't change anything because none of these are past today's date, because it is not, I think the soonest one I have is January 5th, 2021. So, I mean, coming up in a couple weeks, but once that happens, then these will be in red and I can move it over to my main TBR. So, I mean, that's pretty much the gist. Also, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this was helpful, maybe gave you some ideas for how you want to set up your TBR. If it didn't, maybe you just enjoyed seeing kind of what my TBR looks like. I think this will be very helpful for me just to keep more organized, and will help me be a little bit more organized in what I am reading. So if I want to sort of delve into a little bit more of structured of a read as I continue on in my reading journey, I think this is something that will be really nice just to have access to, just to kind of keep a running log. And then it'll also be nice because I did say whether I owned it or not. If I want to just be able to look at the things that I own, that can be really helpful. And I've thought about adding like a separate tab for specifically all of the books that I own, in which case I may change the title just to book list or something like that, because I do want to have kind of a running catalog of all of the books that I own, just so I can kind of have that, like, and whether I read them, things like that. Yeah, but that's pretty much it for now. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have an absolutely beautiful day. Stay magic, keep reading. Love you all so much. Goodbye!